There were times I was lost, dark had fear, couldn't see through the rain. In the end it was clear, hit the fan. I was more than one man who was there to lend a hand. Together we'd stand, always at my back, my guardian soldier. Team put together, united we conquer. Blessed is he who in the name of charity carry me when I'm weak straight through the valley of darkness. Pitch blackness, the heartless, regardless, fear couldn't part us. Thick and thin, there by my side. At times we collide, but in the end we ride. Thick and thin, there by my side. At times we collide, but in the end we ride. We ride, 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 ride. I am my brother's keeper. Keep on holding strong. United we stand, divided we fall. Together we belong. I am my brother's keeper. Keep on holding strong. United we stand, divided we fall. Together we belong. I am my brother's keeper. I am my brother's keeper. I am my brother's keeper.
Welcome back, Moto fans. We've got another great show lined up for you today. The second round of the 2025 Penrite ProMX Championship took place last weekend, and there's a heap to talk about. Before we get into it, today's show is brought to you by the April sponsor of our motocross wall calendars, Death Grip Products. The calendars are still available on the Mental4Moto website and run through to January 2026, so there's heaps of time left on there if you want to grab yourself one. And if you want a pair of the Death Grip Reaper gloves, go to deathgrip.store and use the code MENTAL23 to get yourself a hefty discount. Now, joining me for this episode of ProMX Between the Rounds to break down all of the action from Appin is the host of the Outside Gate podcast, Aussie Steve Hall. Welcome to the Mental4Moto podcast, Steve.
Pete, thanks for having me, mate. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure. I'm a listener of your show, and us two, we've become mates over the last couple of years, bumping into each other at the races and that sort of thing. It's a pleasure to be on the show.
No, it's great to have you, mate. You had me on your show, and I've actually been meaning to get you on here several times. So it's good to finally make it happen.
Yeah, man, and we were both just at Appin, seeing all the action. So it's perfect timing, man, to talk a bit about what happened at round two and talk amongst ourselves as well.
Yep. So before we get into the action, I hear you had a bit of an eventful trip home from Appin. Tell me a little bit about that.
I did, man. So it's fine for anyone that I was bragging to about how cheap my trip was. It's fine if they laugh about this. I can laugh about it already. So I decided to. I live in northern Victoria, so I did the sums, and I'm very much a tight ass. So I did the sums that driving and with my swag and camping was going to be cheaper than flying and hiring a car and finding accommodation, even though the price of diesel's up a little.
Yep.
The trip all went well until I was about an hour and a half from home on Sunday night or Monday morning by then, and a lot of kangaroos on the road out sort of north of Deniliquin there. And I backed off to about 80 and I'm sitting in the middle of the road and keeping an eye on a lot of them around. And it's all going well for, it's been like that for the previous sort of hour I was driving like that because it was a lot of kangaroos. And then the biggest one of them all decided to jump straight out of nowhere, and his hip met right exactly pretty much with where the Holden badge is on the Colorado.
Oh.
and I don't even think I hit the brakes until he'd already hit me. He barrel rolled at least 6 times in front of me.
Yep.
I'm on the chocks, and the headlights are pointing down, and he's
Jesus.
like, and I'm basically watching him barrel rolling along, and he ends up pretty much right beside the driver's door.
Yeah.
And I'm already thinking, he's sort of wriggling and that, and I'm thinking, because I love animals, kangaroos are stupid, but I love animals a lot. I have to grab a knife and finish him off or whatever, do the humane thing. And then he looks around, jumps back up onto his feet and hops away.
Oh, no way.
He hopped away, man.
Oh,
yeah. And there's a chance, because I'm not running a bull bar, which I've regretted not getting a bull bar on that ute ever since I bought it, but it was an extra $2,000. So there you go. That's me being a tight ass again. but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of damage, man.
I can imagine.
Yeah, it's insane. Like he's the sort of the steel that runs behind the plastic bumper. It's pushed back about a foot.
Oh wow! Yeah.
So and it was luckily there's a huge gap between the radiator and the fan.
Yep.
On those utes, but all of that gap bar half an inch was taken up. But yeah.
So it was still drivable though.
It was, man. Yeah, it was leaking water, so I had to stop a few times and let it cool and top her up with water. Luckily, I had plenty of water and that sort of thing. So it added an extra hour and a half to the 7.5 hour trip. But anyway, so that's radiator luckily the radiator cracked at the top, so it wasn't sort of just gradually spewing a bit out and that sort of thing. So do the old trick. Getting the bonnet up was the tricky bit, man. That was the tricky bit. That took a bit of levering. Lucky I had plenty of tools on board.
Oh, far from ideal though. Far from ideal.
No, man. So with the insurance excess and all that, it definitely would have been cheaper to fly now. But anyway, but like I said to my wife, I could have hired a car at Sydney Airport and got hit on my way to Sydney Airport, couldn't I? So by a crazy city driver instead of a crazy bush animal. So there you go, man. It's an adventure.
Every trip is.
That's the story of my life. Everything turned into an adventure, man. Sometimes good, sometimes not so good like this one. But yeah, that's kind of how I roll. So that was an eventful finish to a awesome weekend.
Yeah, well, it's good you're in one piece and he didn't end up in the cabin with you because that can get pretty ugly. Well, we're here to talk about Appin. We'll last there in 2023. We both made the joke when we bumped into each other there that it'd be hard not to make any sprinkler jokes, and you did note that down as one of your talking points. But I mean, how can you not?
And that was something that was out of their control, but it certainly made for some drama in 23. And then we did have a bit of a water issue there at one stage.
Yep.
That they rectified very quick on sort of the far outside of the start straight there. They had a main burst.
Yeah, I saw that
on Saturday there, and they fixed it up real quick. But that could have gotten awfully embarrassing.
Yeah, unfortunately, it was downhill from the straight, but right in front of the CDR tent. Which
well, when I saw it, I was actually walking past and Craig was there talking to the guy that was fixing it.
Yeah.
So because it was pouring towards the CDR truck. Yeah, that's it.
So when we were there on Saturday, like the track it had obviously been ripped. It was still pretty dry before track walk, which is fairly normal. They'll try to get some water in deep, but like the track over the weekend, yes, it was hot. Yes, it was a bit breezy, but it didn't end up anywhere near as deep as expectation. Do you reckon they sort of erred on the side of caution after what happened last time there with the preparation?
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, it's hard to know because I mean, last time everything went wrong. It was 40, it was plus 40 degrees. So everything was just drying out and baking, and then they had the main go and turn the start first corner into a swamp and all that sort of thing. So they might have been a little bit scared about that. But yeah, it's hard to say. I'm certainly not someone that I'm never too critical or too harsh on track prep.
Yeah,
I'm not like some guys get really excited about track prep. For me, and it's probably because I'm older and that, like, it's motocross, man. Like, you ride the conditions you got. And that's sort of the way I always look at it. But I thought it was really good, man. There was a few corners here and there that got some pretty deep ruts, and then there was a lot of it that was pretty hard by the end of the weekend. So
and fast. Yep.
Fast, yeah. There was still, it's not like there was still very little dust by the end of the weekend.
Yeah.
Very little dust. So yeah, I thought it was really good, But like I said, I'm one of these guys that gets too excited about how perfectly tracks are prepared. So,
yeah. Well,
yeah.
it's a clay track. It was pretty, like there was moisture in it on Sunday morning, and it seemed really sticky. Like even crossing the track, you're putting on 4 inches of height to the bottom of your boots, just walking across the track. So I think there was plenty of traction, and I went for a ride today, and the Beaton's Pro Formula guys were out at PBI, and I got to chat with a few of them, and I didn't really come across anyone that loved it, but there wasn't too many complaints from the riders either. Like I think they were reasonably happy with the prep, which is, I think when you get clay tracks, if they're not deep and ruddy, that's a pretty good achievement to have them walking away and think it was an okay racetrack. The consensus, I think, was that there was plenty of line options in terms of like you could move around on the track, which opened up passing options. Like you already said, it wasn't too deep, except in those 2 valleys where those corners were. Some of those ruts were. Yeah, I wouldn't have wanted to be riding through them, but they were pretty hectic. But beyond that, it was a pretty fast, racy clay track, and I kind of like that. I like, we've had this conversation before. I think you and me, Steve. I like the fact when clay tracks are prepped like clay tracks should be. They don't rip them all the same. They don't water them all the same. Like clay tracks should be clay tracks, sand tracks should be sand tracks, and they need that sense of like that natural terrain. Clay tracks should go a little bit dusty by the afternoon. Obviously, not to the point where it's a safety issue, but they should ride like a clay track. Get some square edge holes, get bumpy, not have heaps of ruts, and become slot car tracks. So I thought it was really good.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm sort of old school. Like it's motocross, man. Like it's if the track's not perfect, well, everyone's racing the same track. So I don't get and of course I totally understand that these guys, they're professionals, so they want the tracks better, they want the tracks perfect and that sort of thing. And of course they do. Everyone wants their workplace to be as good as possible, don't they?
That's it, yeah.
But as a fan, I don't get too concerned about what the tracks are like, as long as it's not a disaster.
Yep.
Then everybody's racing the same track, aren't they? So and if the conditions vary a lot and are different at one track to another and that sort of thing, that just makes for better racing, I think. And
I'm here for it. Yep.
Yeah, it's for different riders to get on the podium because they're really good at a particular,
surface.
Surface compared to someone else and that sort of thing. Like I like all that sort of stuff. So
100% mixes it up. Yep.
Yep.
What did you think of the schedule? So we had 4 classes at Appin for a one-day event. I think so we had MX1, MX2, MX3, and the 85 class. I thought the day actually went pretty well like that. Obviously, we had some issues that put behind the timing, which we'll cover in a minute. But in terms of the classes, like, what did you think of the breakdown?
Yeah. I thought it was good. Like, it's easy for me to say, but I wouldn't mind seeing a MX1 race before lunch, the first one before lunch.
Yep.
I can't even tell you why. I think it's just sort of like you sort of get to lunch and halfway through the day, and he's like, the main guys haven't even raced yet. The premier class hasn't raced yet. I don't know, and it wouldn't. I guess there's always thoughts of whether it's the 85s or the WMX or whoever that 4th class is, for them to have to go out then after MX1 have been there, because we know what MX1 does to the track. Oh, that's nitpicking. That's minor stuff. I think it's great. To be honest, I think pumping through 4 classes over a day, and a super pole and all that sort of thing. It's I've been involved in running much lower level events, and it's hard, man. It's hard to get everything through on a day with nothing going wrong and all that sort of thing, man. So I think they do a fantastic job, to be honest.
Yeah. In terms of having the MX1 before lunch, I tend to agree. And if in this case it would have just put the 85 guys, they were the only ones that didn't race after the MX1 guys anyway. So it would have put put them back. I think they're more than capable of it. And from a photography point of view, you know, I'm out on track shooting. I always find with the 85s especially, or any of the classes that they have then before lunch, it's really hard because early on in the day the sun stays low. It tends to be a lot harsher. Yeah. So for me, I'd love to see it as well, like the support classes push after lunch and MX1 before, because then you get an opportunity to shoot that extra class as well when the sun's high and the conditions are the best. So, you know, doing that extra support class, sometimes it's hard work as a photographer out on the track to get good shots because the conditions aren't always favourable for photography. So, yeah, I think that'd work well, you know, both as a fan, spectator, and certainly when you're out on track shooting photos.
Yeah. It'd be interesting. I wonder what it's a question we've both got to remember to ask some riders, I guess, is what they would think about that, because, you know, they it's interesting, you know, it's a bigger gap between their races, but you know, sometimes riders don't want that bigger gap too, you know, because they cool down too much and it's too long. And it's interesting. You'd probably have different opinions with different riders too. So.
Well, I actually heard that conversation earlier today, funnily enough, between some of the MX1 guys, and they weren't sort of too fussed about it, but they were saying it would be good to get out on the track while there's still more moisture in it, so before lunch. So I think, you probably wouldn't get too many complaints if they did switch that around, but obviously it all plays into the TV telecast and everything like that. So
true, because the with the way the broadcast works with the live stream, and then who's the channel it's through this year? SBS. Yeah, so you got the live stream and then SBS. Well, they probably have it that way too because they want all the MX1 on the SBS show.
Yeah, and I'm sure that Thor, who sponsors the MX1 class, pays a pretty penny to have both their motos, you know, represented on SBS as well on the main broadcast. Yeah,
true. You know, it's like a lot of things with moto. You know, you think of ideas and then you break it down, and then you think, well, the TV would have to do this, and you know, there's a lot of layers and a lot of different ways of looking at it. A lot of different people with a stake in it, you know, stakeholders.
And I mean, really, as a fan from a TV broadcast perspective, if I'm watching it on TV, I want to be watching MX1, MX2, MX3, and MXW. Really like the 85 stuff. It's great from an experience perspective, and you can watch them on the live stream. But you want those premier classes to be taking up that main TV broadcast spot, I think.
Yeah, true. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, they need to maybe just get the whole show, the whole day on SBS. That's what they need to do.
I'd be a massive fan of that. I'm sure it would cost a pretty penny, but
I'm not paying the bills, you see, so I can have big ideas like that.
100%. Yeah, one day, will the sport in Aussie will be big enough for that to happen, but today is not that day.
Not yet.
No. So one of the other things that you mentioned earlier, so I wasn't really aware of it. I sort of don't get a chance to get off track except at lunchtime, so I was running around getting a drink, getting some food into me, but there was an auction at lunchtime for the Motocross of Nations to raise money for Team Australia. Yeah. So what was that all about?
Yeah. So, like I said to you earlier, it was a tough crowd. The crowd kept their hands in their pockets, man. It was kind of disappointing, you know. Like, they had one of the MA guys, and we both know who this guy is, but we can't remember his name. Was on the microphone. So sorry to him if he listens. We can't remember your name. We really should know. He was on the microphone doing the auction. Stephen Gall was. Who obviously running that side of things, selling the t-shirts and the hats and all that sort of thing. The legend, he was had signed merchandise and that sort of thing. They were holding up like they kind of. We were talking earlier if they could have done it better, but like they did at lunchtime in front of the cafeteria on the hill. Like you can't sort of get much better to try and capture attention, you know.
Yep.
Like only sort of probably less than half the things sold.
Oh, wow.
And some things didn't even get a bid and that sort of thing. And then a few guys came up later and put in some bids afterwards and some stuff sold. And then
so what kind of stuff were they?
To a mate and sold something else. So there was a bit of action afterwards, but there's some things that didn't even sell, you know. So, but like there was like Chad Reed jersey, Kyle Webster jersey, signed Team Australia jacket, signed Team Australia hat, signed Team Australia front plate.
Oh, wow.
Like some pretty cool stuff, you know.
Yep.
The Appin crowd wasn't getting the wallet out. They wouldn't get that credit card out, man. So yeah, but just thought it was worth mentioning, you know. But I think they do a bit of stuff like this online and that as well. But I guess the message in the end is to support that the fundraising for Team Australia. You know, we're the reigning champion.
Yep. I don't want to be like, I don't want to digress too much, but that leads me to the question, because this is sort of something that has come up multiple times in conversation since Australia won the Motocross of Nations. But Aussie fans seem to be very blasé about that achievement. Like, why do you think that is? Is that the downfall of the media? Is it just the nature of Aussie fans? But, like, you know, I don't see the, you know, it's not made of as a big deal like it should be.
You're spot on, Pete. Like, and I hadn't really probably processed it until now, but you're spot on. Like, you know, I bought one of the hats at Wonthaggi, and I wore it the whole weekend at Appin, you know, like, and I want to get the other hat and the T-shirt, and I'll be wearing them at other rounds and that sort of thing. And it's sort of like, it's a monumental thing in the history of our sport. I guess in some ways it's the biggest thing ever in the history of the sport in Australia.
It's the Olympics of motocross, and you know, Team Australia won.
It is a bit blasé, but I guess and I'm just thinking out loud right now, like, it's funny, Aussie moto fans are, I'm trying to think of the right word. I can't think of the perfect word, but they're pretty cruisy.
Yeah.
You know, like if you think, you look at an Aussie, you look at a final round Coolum, a title on the line Aussie motocross crowd, and you compare it to a crowd in Europe, in
MXGP,
France, in Italy, or at like Redbud or any American round or that sort of thing. Like, our fans are really chill. You know, there's not a lot of noise, not a lot of action, not a lot of hype. It's very, very sort of chilled out, even compared to an Aussie football crowd. The moto crowds are chilled out. And I don't know what it is. I've heard it mentioned on other shows before, other Aussie, you know, podcasts and that before, about why is it? And nobody really has the answer for why that is, because, you know, there's a lot of wild personalities and loose units in Aussie motocross. Like, isn't there? There really is.
100%.
Under the surface, there's a lot of crazy under the surface, but doesn't bubble out at the fence line. You know, it's a funny thing. So, yeah, I don't know why it is a bit underhyped. You know, it's a funny thing, man. Yeah,
it is.
You've certainly got me thinking, talking about that. But it is, massive achievement. You know, I know that I was talking to Team Australia team manager. It's on the tip of my tongue.
Oh, Burner?
No, Burner's team captain. Team manager, that's terrible. It'll come to me. Anyway, I was talking to him after the auction, and
Mark Lusich.
Mark Lusich, yeah, Mark Lusich. And he was saying that he's had a few people say, oh, you know, about the fundraising, well, the Lawrences are loaded. It's like, that's beside the point. That's got nothing to do with it. But yeah, that the Lawrences are loaded. You know, we're not raising money for the Lawrences to do anything. You know, like they're paying their own way. It's we're raising money for the rest of the team to go. You know, for the third rider, for
the managers,
everything.
Yep.
The managers, the whole thing to happen. You know, which is extremely expensive, of course. You know, especially going to the US this year with how the Aussie dollar is.
And let's face it, to the casual fan, they probably don't realise, like they watch our Aussie riders racing the ProMX on TV, they see them at the track, and they probably think these guys are making pretty good money. And unfortunately, we won't go down that road, but it's not the case. So, to go over and do a Europe trip or a US trip to race motocross at that level, it costs money, and it's money that these guys, for the most part, probably can't afford.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And also too, man, like the other side of it, even if you think, that someone else should be paying for it or whatever, well, I actually find that when you donate to a cause like that, like I can remember donating to the 6 Days team, and we won. And I was like, that's so cool that my $100 helped the team get there that's world champions, And when I bought my hat the other weekend, I gave them a bigger note than required and said, keep the change, because it's like, this is a good cause. And, you feel just a little part of it.
Yes.
Something about helping that out, So, but anyway, yes, maybe some people are more patriotic than others. But, yeah, anyway, it's and maybe these auctions, maybe they work better like online and that sort of thing. But if I was flush with an extra, $400, $600, right, which at the moment I'm not, especially after hitting that kangaroo. But if I was, man, and I could say, I bought this jacket off Stephen Gould at Appin. To me, that means something really cool. That's worth a heap on its own, heap over and above the fact that it's a Team Australia jacket.
100%.
I bought it off Gouley at Appin.
Yep.
Appin has history, man. Like, Gouley used to ride, Mr. Motocross Series at Appin.
Yep.
Some of these things are lost on people that are younger, I guess, maybe. But, to me, that was just extremely cool that he's there doing this.
There's definitely that sentimental and historical value there that gets lost on the younger crowd, I think, a little bit.
Yeah, and I always say, and I'm very much, like I got started doing any involvement in media stuff because I'm a historian. Like, I love the history of the sport and I'm well versed in it. And I always say, and sometimes I'm joking, but I'm not really joking, is when youngsters don't know who the legends of the sport are, that it's their parents' fault. Like, mum and dad, what are you doing? Like, you should know this stuff. So yeah, that's put it back on the parents or the grandparents. Like, they should know that when Glenn Bell and Craig Dack and Stephen Gould are at these races, what these guys achieved themselves. Like, how much of a badass they were way before they were wearing a different shirt, Or Dack is still wearing the same shirt, but it's just a different role. But yeah,
in terms of racing in Australia, like, those guys are the Mount Rushmore of Aussie motocross.
Yeah. As far as locals that haven't gone overseas, yeah. And and we've bench raced about this before, Pete. But for mine, Gouley's on our Mount Rushmore of motocross. Like, even with the guys that have raced overseas, For mine, he is, for someone my age and his impact. Now, we could do a show talking about him, I could. But anyway, he paved the way,
Yeah, for sure. All right, so funnily enough, in our talking points that we came up with before the show, you and I both had one shared, and I'll call it a rant, but it was the internet.
Yeah, man. Like, it makes it tough, man. It makes it tough. Like, I made some jokes and that about and honestly, I didn't mind walking up and down the hill because I actually do like to get some good exercise in, but still, you shouldn't have to walk up and down the hill to be able to just to do a tiny social media post on what's happening at the event, And at this event, I didn't even try and load any photos or anything bigger than just a social post because you couldn't. You would have to hike the laptop up the hill and set up an office up there. So yeah, it's hard. I know the foremost guys had Starlink, and I was chatting to the media guy that works for Uribe, and he obviously Uribe hooked him up with the Starlink and that sort of thing. But yeah, most guys there, they don't have it, but even normally at an event you'd have all the riders, all the mums and dads, brothers and sisters, they're all social posting about what's happening at the event, and that's just really good. Even if you don't even talk about you and me, that's really good organic marketing and awareness of what's happening. That none of that can happen, and it doesn't really happen afterwards because they're all tired, they're worn out, they're driving home, they're dodging kangaroos, they're all this, and it's that moment's lost.
Yep.
But where you got someone's sister in the pits all day who would be just pumping out TikToks and Instagram stories and stuff about her brother's racing or whatever, like all those sort of things, that's all missed, So there's a lot of free advertising there that's missed, and I don't know how much it costs to fix that.
From what I understand, it's in the hundreds of dollars. It's not going to break the bank. And
okay.
At the end of the day, we're talking about a national caliber event that's on TV. Yeah. Overlook the fact the media centre, quote, is a tent with a dirt floor and no lights and no internet. I think, we're at the stage now where the sport and the brand is big enough, at least, and I completely understand what you're saying about the spectators and that organic promotion, but from a professional point of view, I think it's time that their media centre is equipped round to round. Like you go to QMP and there's nothing with a Starlink.
Yeah, I've heard about QMP. There's nothing at all. So and that's the last round. So they've got to have that fixed for QMP like that.
So on Saturday, I spent more than half the day getting content, interviewing riders, interviewing Dakar for a pre-race show. And look, the last pre-race show I did had, I think, 3,500 views on YouTube, and I had it finished by 7:30. So busted my ass to get this thing done, and it took 3 hours, over 3 hours to upload. It ended up on YouTube at 11 p.m. and
and by
nobody's
that stage,
watching it anymore. Yep,
you've lost your viewership.
Yep, and I mean, I'm just a small independent media guy, but even for the bigger guys, and you put that, how many media guys are in the media at each event? There's probably 20. That shouldn't even be a thing. I think internet access shouldn't be a thing. Another thing that happened on the weekend, and like I said, this I guess is a bit of a rant, was the CompuTime dropped out, the power dropped out, and they lost internet. All that sort of stuff. That shouldn't be happening. There should be contingencies for that. And again, that's not on the club. I think as a whole, ProMX needs to cater for that, so that sort of stuff doesn't happen.
I would be guessing that is down to ProMX to have that side of things under control. Yeah.
That's my rant done. Maybe next year we'll have some internet that we can tap into in the media centre at the events.
Yeah.
So
well, that's like I said. You were swagging it as well. You swagged it at the track, Pete. I went and swagged it at a caravan park just because I wanted to have some internet.
Yep.
Then the internet at the caravan park was terrible.
Yeah.
So, but anyway,
it's a win-win. Like for the cost that it would take, it's a win-win for the promoter, for the brand, for the event, for the media. Like there is no loss for the cost versus benefit. Yeah, when it comes to internet, and if I don't know how Starlink works on that level, but if you can have it so you've got free for people to tap into, that's even better.
It was really my only sort of, real negative on the weekend, I think, and you probably have a lot of people who would agree. That's pretty much it. They're obviously, like I said, I was a bit disappointed at people not buying more Team Australia stuff, but
I have one more small rant as well. and this has happened at a couple of rounds now. They do it at some of the Victorian rounds of the Victorian Championship. Can we get rid of the sight dunnies away from the edge of the track? They don't look great in the back of photos and the back of TV.
Yeah. I've never even thought of that. But so you're a professional photographer. I'm a very amateur photographer.
The backdrop makes the photo, every time. When you're looking for a vantage point, you're looking at what's in the background, rusty old containers or falling down sheds, or, you want a crowd, you want some of the track in the background, or a hill, or some of the infrastructure. Sight dunnies is not a good look.
You'll be right next weekend, Pete, because you'll get the graffiti on the factory wall in the backdrop for Gilman.
Yeah, I don't mind that. Yeah, street cred. Yeah,
that's it. You're in the main streets of Adelaide.
That's it. That's it.
Not picking on Gilman. Gilman's awesome, but that actually just makes me laugh. The graffiti on the factory wall.
Yeah, the old industrial estate with the graffiti. Yep, in the backdrop.
Yeah.
Iconic would be too strong a word, but it definitely makes Gilman recognisable. To any fan.
It's Gilman. It's Gilman.
100%. Yep.
That's it.
So there's no doubt at a glance. So all right. Before we start getting into each of the classes, the other thing that I wanted to mention, which I thought was interesting, I interviewed one of the riders on the Saturday. The debut of the Stark Varg in ProMX competition. So we had a Stark rider in MX3, DJ Sanko. So, young guy was debuting it, was actually leading the non-qualifiers race at the end of the day, and had a bit of an echo on one of the downhills, but... Yep, interesting to see that out there. I spoke to him. They cap it at 48 horsepower. He's 50 kilos. So, and it's a clay track. So great way to sort of debut the Stark. I believe they still would have problems with a faster, bigger rider on a more demanding track in terms of the, sand, loam, that sort of surface, mud. But interesting to see them in the mix. And I think the guy in MX1 that was riding one, I think he's just sort of a local dude. He sort of did the first 5 laps and then pulled off. But what are your thoughts on having electric bikes in the mix with petrol-powered bikes?
I'm pretty old school. Like I'm not, I don't love the whole electric movement. I do think they're a cool machine. I'm not sold on them racing in the same class, to be honest, with the petrol-powered machines. I would much prefer to see them as their own thing, as their own race, their own class. I think that would be cool, and have that as a maybe in the rotation of the 85s and so on. Where they do a couple of rounds where we have an electric class or something like that, where they're on their own. So they're still getting out in front of the big crowds and all that sort of thing, but they're on their own. Not to say I might not come around, and I am an old school sort of, smell the 2-stroke, yelling at kids to get off me lawn. I am that bloke, no doubt. I'm that old fella that is yelling at clouds. But it's interesting, you hear different things. I think it depends if people like them or not, because sometimes you hear, they're dangerous because you can't hear them and that sort of thing. But then you sort of hear someone that likes it and they're like, oh, nah, it's cool. I thought it was cool having it out there, So I really you can't pin down too much factual stuff on it, I think, really. I think it depends on people's preconceived opinions, like I have a preconceived opinion,
I tend to agree with you. I think, if we start seeing more of them, say we've got 5 in each class, I think then it's time to have their own class. That's, I think until then, I'm okay with them being in the mix, and it's a bit of a novelty thing. But if they start dominating, or the numbers start going, or when the numbers start going, assuming this electric movement's going to take off. Sooner rather than later, I'd like to see them have their own class. And like you said, even if it is a feature class as opposed to one of the main ones to begin with, I'd be all for it. I know Stark is opposed to that. I've heard interviews and read articles. They want them in the mix. They don't want their own class. But
I can see, like, from a marketing perspective, of course, they want to come in and kick the ass of the petrol-powered bikes and sell more bikes. So, any company, of course, they are going to look at what's best for them.
Yep.
They're in the business to sell bikes. That's their number one thing. And number two and number three, so that's what they need to do. But I guess no matter which way you go about it, it's a different machine. It's a really, really different machine.
Yep.
To everything else out there. It's so different.
No clutch, no gears.
So different in so many ways, It's not the same thing, So I don't think I'd ever come around to it being just allowed to be, half a field of them and half a field of 450s.
I tend to agree. Yep.
I watched the US Arena Cross, and they had an electric class and the petrol class, and then they had a one-off sort of feature race. I think with like prize money. Yep. It wasn't for points or anything, and there would be like the fastest of four of each or whatever would be in for like a money race. Yeah, but that's Arena Cross. It's 8 bikes. Arena Cross is kind of novelty-ish anyway.
Yes,
and it was kind of cool because sometimes Freezy would get the start on his 450. Sometimes, like Bogle would get the start on the Stark. And it was kind of interesting in that, but that's different, and also too, like I really look at, when you're talking motocross, outdoor motocross, that's the sport at its purest,
yep.
Like if you're a cricket fan, it's like the test cricket, You don't screw with it. You sort of leave that alone, and you do your different stuff in some more novel things. That's kind of the way I look at the outdoors. But yeah, in the end, Pete, you and me will just have to watch this space and see what happens and report on it anyway. Like what you say.
That's it. Oh, but on the current level, I actually enjoy seeing them out there, and I think it's intriguing, and it's a storyline. Like to see how they go. Yeah.
Been a couple of them for sure. Yeah, it was cool, and you definitely watched out for them and that sort of thing. And
for sure, and I hope the technology continues to improve. But like I said, I think when it gets to that point, if they've got their own class, that'd be the way to go.
And like I did notice, where's the bloke you were talking about in the MX3? Because when the MX1 guy was out there, you couldn't hear him at all, of course, because there's another full field of 450s or anything. But that last MX, the youngsters that didn't qualify, there was only about 8 of them. So, and then they spread out so you could hear each bike, and you could hear that Stark going around the track, and it sounds shit, man, like whistling and chain slapping. Like, I mean, man, like I wrote an article, several years ago about all this, and I always remember the theme of it because it really stuck with me. The sounds and the smells of the sport is things that really impact us. I can still smell, I still use the same 2-stroke oil, but I can still just get this feeling of joy when I smell that Castrol oil.
Yep.
And when I hear a 2-stroke start up, especially a big 2-stroke, it's just the feeling of joy, and that, or the other, or a small, like a guy that's really working the shit out of a 125, like the 125 Cup at Conondale and that sort of thing, just like, 30 125s out there just getting rung, and all the smells and the sounds and all that.
Yep.
just fantastic. And the thunder of a field of 450s taken off, and like that's all. We experience the sport through all our senses, and the smell and the sound are just as important as the sight of it.
I agree. Yep.
Like I reckon if I was standing on the sideline and you said cover your ears or cover your eyes, it'd be a tough choice. So that and the electric bikes from a spectator experience, they take away two of those things. Just bang, that's gone.
You stand
gone.
You stand next to the start straight when a ProMX MX1 class takes off from the gate. Like, it gets your heart racing. The noise, the thunder, it's just, 40 450s just hammering down the start straight. My prevailing memory, further to sort of what you said, my prevailing memory as a kid was at the Supercross Masters, the two strokes starting under the stadium, and they were below us, so we were actually sitting above the start gate, and you couldn't see them, and sort of the 5-second board goes up, you're hearing the two strokes rev and the smell of that oil, and man, that's like, I still remember it. It still gives me goosebumps now. I was like 8 years old. It's you imagine that exact scenario with electric bikes, and
that's right.
It's like nothing.
It's not there.
Nothing. Like nothing.
Now like I've told you before, but like I didn't grow up around moto, and a few different things happened to be lucky enough for me to get an interest sparked in it. But one of those things was I had a neighbour, a neighbour who was a bit of a wild man, and he had a bunch of two strokes, and he would get them out and start them up and throw monos up and down the road and that sort of thing. And he used to always run like castor oil in them and all that sort of thing, and all that. Like that's just that to me. Racing motocross was, you had to already be unbelievably good to even try it. And then I definitely didn't even know where you would go to try it, not being from a family that was into it. But this neighbour, and I would see and smell and hear these bikes and that sort of thing. That was like, and I'm 49, I'm still talking about that right now, and I'm still like, my foot's tapping, So there's a lot of the smells, man. You even remember, man, you can remember the favourite thing your mum cooked when you were a kid. You can remember the smell, can't you?
Totally. Yep.
Yeah. Your favourite song, what music does to you, what sound does to you. That's what the sound of a bike does to me,
I'm sure riding one is just as fun.
I think riding them is probably all, and what I've heard, riding them is awesome.
It's just not the same. It's just not the same. I think that's the point. Well, we're nearly an hour in. I guess we should probably talk about some of the results and, each of the classes. So, we'll kick things off with the Premier class, MX1. Kind of some unexpected things happened, I guess, from the trend that began at Wonthaggi. Nathan Crawford led laps. Clout had lap times that were comparable to Webster and Beaton. Kurt Gibbs had some flashes of greatness. But in the end, there was two riders again. So
in the end, the cream rose to the top again. Like if your name's not Jed or Kyle or one of their team, like you probably want someone else to get up there and get some action going. Or some extra action going. And it was cool. Nato and Cloudy and that. And there was a bit of spice early in motos and that sort of thing, but then they come past, and then all of a sudden the red one and the blue one are out the front.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny, they put on a good race and they're always so close to each other. But and it is really good racing, man. But I think maybe we're just a little bit too used to it now. It's kind of just like, we're looking for something a little different to happen, aren't we? Yeah.
Oh, I don't mind. Like, I would love for someone to get in the mix, and I do love seeing when Clout and Crawford are up there and challenging, and even some of the other riders. But this year it seems to be those two are the next best. But at the same time, I actually don't mind. In the US when Jet was winning everything, I actually liked that as well. Like I think it's definitely a different dynamic. But
Yeah.
I enjoy watching it. I don't necessarily need a different winner each week to get a kick out of watching the racing. I sort of I can appreciate that Kyle and Jed have put the work in, and I get the opportunity to see it because they do a lot of training down around where I live.
Yeah. I always want the most deserving guy to win.
Yep.
So I want Kyle or Jed to win this championship. Already, that's who I want to win this championship because they are the best guys and the most deserving to win it. But I want it to be a more dramatic,
Yep. Drama's good, stories are good.
I'd love four or five people within a chance with a couple of rounds to go, and it all to be close. And I want a couple others to win rounds and it all to I want more. I just love that sort of stuff. I love to see it and the different things happening like that rather than just a season of domination. Even when I've had favourite riders over the years dominate series and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
In the end, I'm sort of like, it does. But it all depends. Like I can certainly see what you're saying. You do when someone or a couple of guys are really dominating. There is a aspect of looking at it and that like you're witnessing greatness.
Yep.
Right. You're witnessing some really, really classy stuff, and to really appreciate that as well. So, yeah, I can see what you're saying for sure.
And success for these guys is avoiding the drama. And like we started with drama at Wonthaggi.
Yeah.
With Kyle going down. So,
yeah.
For me, the storyline of this class is Kyle Webster, and I think it goes deeper, a lot deeper than him just regaining 6 points. So he came into the round 22 points down from Beaton. He won Moto 1. Then in Moto 2, he was running fourth. Crawford was leading. Crawford went down.
Yeah.
Then Beaton was leading. Clout was in between them.
Yeah.
Now, at this point, he's still down on points for the round. Clay tracks have traditionally been his kryptonite.
Yeah.
In 2023, he only scored 27 points at Appin. Like it was a terrible round for him. To come back this year and go 1-1 in the situation, the fact that in Moto 2 he's behind two very, very fast, accomplished guys, it makes a statement that he's no longer a sand specialist.
Yeah.
I think it makes a massive statement in terms of that this championship isn't over.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Yeah, it was unbelievably impressive, especially Moto 2. The fact that he was, he was a couple of positions behind Jed. Like early on there, I think Jed was running second and he was running fourth. Yeah.
Yes, correct.
And eventually, I can still remember Trent going berserk. Because I couldn't see it because I was up the hill. I couldn't see where Kyle got Jed, but yeah, I could hear Trent going crazy over the speakers and.
Yep,
and
I believe it was through the S's after the mechanic area, so before they come past the start-finish line.
Yeah. And then they were both had lapper issues at the end, and like the end of it was pretty cool. And like it was a good one. It was a good one, but those two are just so evenly matched, man. Like it's incredible, so evenly matched and. They're like different riding styles, but very evenly matched on pace.
Yes.
So it makes for a pretty cool to watch,
And for me, I think where that's
a few little mistakes each, and
Yep. I think where that storyline sort of kicks in is at this point it's going to be whether Beaton crumbles at managing the lead, and how much heart Webster has, and how hard he's going to push to win another championship. Because if we look at the points. Like realistically, they leave round one with Beaton 22 points in front. All he has to do is match Webster for points at each round, and the championship's his. Even if he goes close to matching the points, the championship is his. He doesn't. Yeah. He no longer has to go out and win every moto and beat Webster at every moto. Webster.
Yeah, it's good that he's still got to win some. He's still got to win some. He can't just 2-2 his way out. Like that's nowhere near enough. He's got to.
And that's
He's got to get some ones in there.
and this is where I'm going with this. So he's leading Webster. If he ends up holding on for that win in Moto 2 and Webster goes 2, then they end up leaving the round. Yes, Jed gets the overall, but they leave tied on points. So that 22 point remains going into round 3.
Yeah.
So Webster has to win. He's got to claw these points back. So I went back and looked at last year's rounds. So between rounds 2 and 7 last year, Webster scored 19 points more than Beaton.
Yeah.
So if he does that again this year, he would go into the final round with the red plate and a 3-point lead.
Yeah.
So, and that's just like last year, with all the drama, everything else that happened, the ups and downs of every round. And at that stage, he's got no need to push as hard as he does this year. So it's definitely not over by any stretch of the imagination. Like it is, it's not only doable, it's very possible for Webster to still win the championship. He's only 16 points back now, and it's 6 points per round. So he could have the lead in 3 rounds if he wins, goes 1-1-1-1-1, for the next 6 races. So, for me, it's actually just the excitement level is sort of ramping up. Yes, it's only these 2 guys, really, and hopefully someone can get in the mix and play spoiler because that will just, add another element. But, I think, I heard a lot of talk both there and since that Webster's pretty much out of it. And I'm like, I don't see it. And looking back historically, it's not the case.
No, it's not. I didn't even have thoughts of him being out of it when it was 22 points.
Yep.
With 7 rounds left because he wins a lot, like he wins a lot, and it's sort of like either of these guys, a mistake from either of these guys, a tip over and they get a 7th in a moto.
Yes.
A late tip over. Like there's so many things that can happen that can shift a huge chunk of points.
Massively.
So, and then, we could get a track that's just NATO's track. I know there's one I'm trying to think of. There's a track, one in particular that NATO's done really well at, but I can't think of which one it is. All cloudy, there could be someone that just like has their day, you know?
Yeah.
And
so in terms of the rest of the results then, so, we're talking about Cloudy and Crawford. Like you look at the points from Appin. So Webster goes 1-1, Beaton goes 2-2, Cloudy goes 3-3, Crawford goes 4-4, Rogers, who came 5th, goes 6-6. So does that tell the broader story of this class? Like, some of the MX2 guys and the MX3 guys, like there's a real mix in terms of where they could finish on any given day. But
one thing I noticed of the looking at the MX1, like the top 10 and that sort of thing, is that there's a few different names in there that you never would have been seeing in there a couple of years ago.
Yep.
And I know Gibbsy would have been in there if he didn't, sample the start straight and that sort of thing. Like so there's a few things, but like there's some guys in there that are particular, like Rogers, man. Like that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I said it at the end of last year, like when we did our season wrap-up show. It's an aging class, like it really is. Medi's stepped away now, but you've still got Gibbs, you've still got Waters.
Yeah,
Jed and Kyle have got a lot of experience, and they're probably at the tail end of their peak, I would say.
Yeah.
Cloudy, you could probably say the same thing about Crawford, possibly too. And there's all these guys now that are, I guess, a little bit younger, that are all starting to nip at their heels a little bit.
Yeah, it's cool to see, I remember, even last year, you saw Rogers and Watson and Evans and a few of these guys, getting in the top 10, getting into Super Pole. It was like, yeah, cool, good job, like.
Yep.
So yeah,
but they seem to be doing it more consistently now. Like, at the end of Appin, we had 4 privateers in the top 10. We had Levi Rogers in 5th, Zach Watson in 8th, Joel Evans in 9th, and you Mackay from Tassie in 10th. Like, awesome finish for you.
Yeah.
But man,
would that be? Is that his first 450 top 10, Mackay?
I'd have to say he wouldn't have many if he's got any before this.
Yeah. But it's really cool, man.
Yeah.
Really cool,
100%.
And like Rogers is sitting fifth in points.
Like getting off the beater, that was the best thing that he ever did.
Yeah.
Like, that Yami for Calandra Motorcycles, I think, suits him well. And finally, we're actually seeing what he's capable of when the bike, performs as well as he does.
Yeah. That's interesting. I never actually noticed the absence of beaters.
Yep.
Out there, until you just mentioned it then.
Yep.
Yeah, I was too busy looking at all the triumphs, which is another talking point. But
I think there was a lot of problems with the bike last year for him.
Yeah.
So that definitely impeded his results. So sometimes it made it to the end of the moto, sometimes it didn't. But I think there wasn't that many motos where, it ran perfectly for the whole moto.
But no, it's cool. But, Duffy had a crash in Moto 2. He would have been a top 10 guy otherwise. And Gibbsy had that nasty one at the start of, or it wasn't the start straight, but just around around turn one.
Yeah,
still you got to finish. You got to stay on the bike to get a top 10, don't you? So it doesn't take anything away from these guys that have snuck in there.
Oh, that was devastating, mate. I was shooting for Joel Evans' vlog this weekend, so I was standing at the end of that straight with the camera pointed at Joel Evans, and got him launching off Gibbsy. Man, that was a scary crash. Gibbsy was probably in contention there for the whole shot. Like, he was leading a pack of 450 MX1 guys. That is not the place you want to go down. Like, that is the place you least want to go down, is front of.
Yeah. It was in the press tent after that. One of the guys had some good video footage of it, and he was we were watching the slow mo of it, and damn, it was brutal.
Yeah.
Like, apparently, it almost looked like Joel's front wheel tagged him in the back, but I think it was his fork leg. Basically, copped a fork leg to the shoulder. So
I think his front wheel went over his shoulders and the back of his helmet.
Oh, it did it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, there you go. Yeah. So it was what it looked like. Because then I heard something about a fork leg afterwards. But yeah.
Yeah.
And then Joel did well. Joel's bike was like a bucking bronco. He got a bit of a tank slapper up like afterwards. Like, he was hanging on to that as well. So yeah, he did well.
I was blown away at the reaction time of these guys. Like, even the guys that come behind. I think Zach Watson was right behind him as well when it happened. Even like Joel only just, that could have been way worse. Like, Joel in that split second took evasive action and nearly avoided hitting him. Zach Watson, who was right behind Joel and on the gas, missed him, and I don't think anyone else hit him on the way through. So, it's a testament to just what good athletes these guys are, and like their fast twitch muscle and how aware they are. Because I know, from my own experience, and you're probably the same, mate, when you're going up a start straight and you're on the gas, I feel like I'm kind of like I'm not that aware of shit that's going on. You're kind of just hanging on for dear life.
No, man. If that was me, I would have probably just ran him over.
Yep. You and me both. Yeah.
I would have ran straight over the top of him and then crashed myself.
The awareness of these guys is impressive. Yeah. Like, definitely.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And well, you mentioned it already, but the Triumph 450, it's doing well.
It is, man. And we're sort of leading the world in that. Like, I actually haven't caught much MXGP this year. Just haven't had time, I've got to catch up on a few races, but I don't think there's any of note running in the 450 over there. Is that right? I'm not. Yeah, I could be wrong.
I believe we're the first premier series that's got the Triumph 450.
Yeah, because there's nothing happening in the US with them. And look, first year, like, you just want to see them reliable, really. Like, that's what you're looking for. You're not looking for, and their main rider is like coming back to motocross after a decade. And, been an off-road racer, or the best part of a decade. I don't know exactly how long, but Simo's it's been a long time. So, you don't expect Simo to be being a world beater, but you're just looking at for that bike to be reliable and getting through the motos and.
Well, you say
to be going well. So.
You say the main rider, like he's on the winner Triumph Australia, like factory racing team, but Zach Watson's on a Triumph as well, and he's getting consistent top 10 finishes.
That's right too. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I didn't. I totally missed that Watson was on the Triumph as well. Yeah, because I was looking at Simpson's results. Yeah, so yeah, I mean, well, that's way better than what I'm saying, then, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. No, killing it. Absolutely killing it.
That's what was Watson? Eighth? I think I've written down.
Yep, 8th overall.
So second round into it. 8th overall.
Sitting 7th in the championship.
7th in the championship. It's good, isn't it, man? Like I've been really impressed over the last couple of years with the 250 Triumph. And so, yeah, it looks like the 450 is going pretty damn good as well. It'll be, I remember here, I can't remember where I heard it, but I heard something about the US Triumph team were taking interest in what was happening here with our guys.
I can imagine, yeah.
And might have even been swapping intelligence and that sort of thing, which I'm sure you would. In fact, I know a guy to ask, so I'll do some research there and I'll let you know, Pete.
Yeah. Well, I had Zach on my last podcast, so it was good to chat to him. But I also rode Ty Keen's 250 out at PBI a couple of weeks ago. Yeah. And I can tell you now, like it was his practice bike, so stock suspension just been revalved for him. But they handle unbelievably, and the power delivery, like I'm coming off a 350, so it felt a little bit like lacking bottom end, but still like really nice to ride, very linear, and like such an easy bike to turn to ride. It actually felt almost like riding a two-stroke a little bit, like not a lot of engine braking, and just so easy. Like I found myself actually laying it down too early, like before the rut, and it took me a little bit to get used to, because you can actually come in a lot hotter than on the 350, which wants to stand up more and plow forward a little bit more. So such a good bike, man. Like straight out of the box, the KYB suspension on those things, they've done amazingly well for a first year bike. Yeah. Out of the box, and like Ty said to me, because I think it took a little while. Even Zach said the same. So he came down and raced the Vicks, and I believe he did round 1 on stock suspension. If you are a privateer racer, I think for a bike straight out of the box without having to spend too much money, like they are a very, very, very good option.
Well, there's plenty of them in the pits already. I mean, obviously there's 2 teams running them.
Yep.
But I'm sure there was a few others as well as the 2 teams. Like there seemed to be anyway. There seemed to be like plenty of Triumphs around. So
most definitely.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
It's a cool thing.
It is, and we've got Ducati coming soon as well. So just throw another one into the mix.
Yeah, I hope it plays out as good as Triumph has, man, because it's showing some growth in the sport, isn't it? Like my only fear, which I've said before, is my only fear with these new brands is don't go pushing Suzuki out. Leave Suzuki alone.
Oh man, I've given up hoping, but I would still hope that Suzuki at some point reinvests in the motocross platform, but I think there's more to it. I think they're focused on other Suzuki things, so not necessarily motorcycles. Yeah. So anyway,
cars, outboard motors, like they're into lots of different things, Yeah,
we can only hope. It'd be good to see some new Suzuki platforms out there, like revisited and revised.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a whole nother discussion, isn't it, about that? That's a whole nother tangent we could go, or I could go on, that's for sure.
100%.
You better keep me in check on the tangents, Pete. You know what I'm like.
Yeah, well, we've gone down a lot of tangents, but I think it's been good. Some things that probably needed to be said. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, MX2. We'll stay on track.
Yeah, man.
MX2. So Brodie Connolly wins the weekend, but then doesn't win because of a penalty. I think that's the story of this class, really. He was going for the perfect season.
But then does win, but then doesn't win again.
Yeah.
By the sounds of it. I think there's been a couple of protests.
Yeah, yep. And
yeah.
I think that the race organisers kind of dropped the ball on the way this was handled, and I think they've learned. They'll learn a lot.
Very messy.
Yeah, and it won't happen again because the way that it handled, I think, actually impacted subsequent races, which shouldn't be the case.
Yeah.
You know, when you've got something that happens provisionally, so for I guess the listeners that aren't sort of aware of the background, so he came together with Alex Anderson in Moto 2. He went off track. He came back on still ahead of Alex Anderson. He didn't relinquish the position. He was considered to have gained an advantage, so he got a penalty, which was 2 positions.
Yeah.
Then it was actually overturned. And so I was standing at that start straight waiting for that next moto when Connolly and Alex Anderson got called over to the official, and he was obviously debriefing them. And Connolly, like, his body language was like really erratic, and I thought he was fired up at Alex Anderson, like the way they were talking, and was having a go. But then at the end, they fist bumped. Connolly rode off. Alex Anderson stayed there. And what I've been told was said was basically Alex Anderson was defending Brodie Connolly, and as a result, the penalty has been overturned. It's not not instantly, but because of whatever was said, the penalty was overturned. However, the Yamaha team, who are obviously watching this very closely, with Ryder Kingsford being a contender for the championship, were told that Brodie Connolly had been penalised.
I thought that came down to what was on the pit board towards the end of Moto 2.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
he didn't need to push to try and get Brodie. He had the overall because Brodie was getting penalised. But then it got overturned, and then it's like, so it's messy.
Yeah, so I think that the outcome is basically that penalties shouldn't be announced until the end of the day. And I think if this sort of stuff happens, it should be reported as under investigation. It should not impact during the race or before the end of the day. That's my opinion. Yep. I think otherwise there's just way too many other variables that get influenced, and you just don't want that. Like, at the end of the day, there's the whole process of the investigation, the appeals process, the protest, all that sort of stuff. That all has its place. That shouldn't be happening while there's racing still going.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, yeah. Finish the race and then look into it, with and then also all parties then are looking into it with a little bit calmer minds and clearer eyes.
There's no risk of Chinese whispers either, which is like what's going to happen in the heat of the moment, because one official tells one team guy this, then that gets communicated on a pit board, and the rider interprets it this way. I think it just needs to be, at the end of the day, where everything is sort of very clear, concise, and everyone's getting the same information. Yeah.
In the end, man, it's all a bit of a shame. It's a bit of a shame.
I agree.
From what was awesome racing. So it's always a shame when things like this are the storyline.
Yes.
After an awesome round of racing. But, it's part of the sport,
So one of the things that's been spoken about quite a bit this week is like Brodie's mindset when he puts his helmet on. So there's been a bit of talk, I think it came up in an interview as well, that, once that helmet goes on, it's the only time he's angry. He's and look, he is a world-class talent. I think, hands down, he's one of the best riders in Australia. He's certainly at the moment the cream of the crop when it comes to the MX2 class. Though, he's not without his challenges. He is, I think, at the top, the summit of the mountain in terms of the MX2 class. However, in that moment, what happened, I think he needs to benefit as well. As much as as fans, I probably don't want to see it. Like maturity and patience, he would have relinquished, or he could have relinquished that position to Alexanderson and passed him 2 corners later. That win was his for the taking, and that I guess erratic, immature decision-making process is potentially what's going to cost him the perfect season. And even obviously there's another 6 rounds to go after this, but let's just say he wins every other race. That's going to cost him a shit ton of money, because I'm sure a bonus for a perfect season would have been there, and even just the bonus for that round win would have been a lot of money. So anyway, it's happened now. I think it's not over.
Yeah.
The other thing which I thought interesting, which I'd like to get your thoughts on. So the incident was between Connolly and Alexanderson, so Kawasaki and Honda, and yet the successful protest at the end of the day came through from Yamaha. Obviously, they want to see Ryder Kingsford win a championship. But I don't know. For a start, I think the penalty was a bit stiff. I think it's debatable whether he actually gained an advantage. Alexanderson pushed him off the track. I feel like when he sort of came back on, they were probably in the same position. I don't know. Would you agree with that? So
it's a tough one. I've given it a bit of thought, and I guess he didn't gain much advantage. But I guess the fact that he went through the corner on the wrong side of the track markers, I guess they've got to enforce that. But the penalty's probably harsh.
Oh yeah, I would be looking at that.
Probably 2 positions is harsh. The penalty more I'd be sort of thinking more like 2 seconds than 2 positions, because it wasn't a big deal,
And I think in the past they've kept the positions, but they've taken the points. So you still end up on the top step of the podium because you won the race. And I think there's not really any debate that he wouldn't have won the race otherwise. He was the fastest guy. He was in a position to win the race, and that didn't really change the impact. So maybe they could have taken the points, but he still ends up on the top step of the podium, which still makes him eligible for the win bonus and the perfect season. I don't know. It's a complicated one, but I think whatever comes out of it at the end of the day, they need to be consistent to what's happened in the past and consistent from now on to what happens in the future.
Yeah. It's a tough one. I'm glad I don't have to make those decisions, Pete.
Yeah, I agree. But I think we can agree that it shouldn't have happened mid-moto. None of that whole thing, that's sort of the way it played out, that from the officials communicating to teams and riders and everyone else, there shouldn't be any communication like that until the end of the moto.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Yeah. That made things very messy, and then it was the drama at the podium,
yes,
shifting bikes around on the podium and all this sort of stuff. It's all messy, it's unprofessional. I'm sure they would have learnt from that. But it's interesting, man. This class, just like the previous one and the next one we'll talk about, they've got a red bike and a blue bike.
Yeah. It's the story of this year's championship for sure. I guess what I was getting at before, what I didn't like before we move on, I don't know, I understand it from a championship point of view, from a money point of view, but I didn't like the fact that Ryder Kingsford, who wasn't involved in the incident at all, and it wasn't him personally, it was the team, but that they made the protest that eventually led to the penalty. That kind of rubs me the wrong way. Is that how you want to win a championship?
So it was instigated by Yamaha, was it? Because I didn't realise that. I thought it was picked up by, the clerk of the course or the steward.
No, so after it was overturned the second time, which exonerated him, and then the podium thing went down, and Connolly was announced the winner. Yet, from what I believe or what I've been informed is that Yamaha ended up putting the protest in, which was then upheld and resulted in the penalty of Connolly.
Okay. Yeah. That doesn't sit awesome with me. No.
I understand it, but I still don't dig it. I guess.
Yeah. It's hard to. It's I can't put myself in their shoes, and everybody in those trucks is a much more competitive beast than me. So,
as you said at the opening of the show, you want to see the best rider win.
Yeah. Well, true. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And probably why I'd be no good in their job, but I wouldn't protest unless something was really egregious, and really blatant.
Yep. Anyway, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out now, moving forward into Gilman. We'll sort of talk about Gilman a little bit later, but, if Brodie Connolly already rides angry, I think he is going to come into Gilman now with a pretty serious chip on his shoulder. Once that helmet goes on, he's always pretty chill before that, but he might just end up winning like the next two races by half a lap.
There's a pretty clear, well, to everyone, it's pretty obviously there's a pretty clear number one rider in MX2, but I think there's a pretty clear number two as well, because I guess it was race one, Ryder didn't get a great start. Or I could be thinking of, there was one of the motos anyway. Ryder didn't get a really good start, and he just came through all the other guys and slotted into second. Over a few laps, just passed, slotted into second. He was clearly the second fastest guy. So there's definitely a pretty set, there's a set 1-2 out there.
Yep.
And then there's a bunch of guys. There's 5 or 6 guys that could all probably be third.
Yep.
On their day, it's sort of how it looks like it's working out,
I agree with that. Yeah. Everyone from pretty easy to name, but you've got Alex Larwood, Seth Birchall, Noah Ferguson, Reece Budd, Byron Dennis, and Jace Cosford, and Ryan Alexanderson. Yeah. I think those guys are all interchangeable for third to 8th or 9th or whatever it is. Yep.
Yeah, they're a bit of a pack who have their day.
Yep.
I think is Alexanderson done now?
I believe so. Yep.
Yeah.
And I know there was a little bit of talk today at the Pracky track about Connolly not being the only rider that he rubbed up the wrong way over the weekend. So
I've heard some stuff. Yeah, that he was Alex Anderson. He wasn't making friends on the weekend.
No, so it's probably good for him that he's getting on that plane and going back to
Europe.
Getting
out of the country. So maybe that's why he was riding like that, because I'm getting out of the country, so it's whatever.
No, take no prisoners.
Because who was he filling in for?
Campbell Williams.
Coming back. Campbell Williams, that's right. Yeah.
Yep. Can I just something that I forgot that I actually saw and I also heard raised today, which was interesting in that there was no penalties issued. So on the start in Moto 2, I reckon I've got photos of it. There's probably 3 or 4 guys that went wide off the start straight in the MX2 class. They went over the outside of the corner and they powered up the side of the track there. And I know at least one of those guys. I'm not going to name numbers. I don't want to be that guy. But I reckon one of those dudes would have made up 10 positions from where he went off the track to where he came back on. And and I haven't heard anything about that. No investigation, no penalties.
I think I watched probably half the starts from the first, the outside of turn 1.
Yep.
And every start, there was riders on the wrong side of the track markers out there. So maybe it was, maybe it happened so much that they've just we're going to let that go today because everyone did it. Yeah.
Yeah, but I didn't see any other races where it was such a clear cut gaining of advantage.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
On that note, I didn't dig the start straight. It reminds me of a track that we race here in a regional series, and I think the dynamic of it and the way that it ends up racing is kind of dangerous. And from what I heard some of the riders saying today as well, I think that's pretty much the consensus. I was talking to one.
I think it's got to be wider where it starts to turn. It's got to be wider.
No, so the way I feel that the start straights need to be, so this straight is very much like a regional track out here, Bairnsdale, where the track is wide up the straight, and it doesn't actually narrow till around the corner. So basically everyone comes in red hot. The guys on the outside are sweeping in at full speed, and you've got guys on the inside that if they overshoot the inside, like they're cutting across these guys that are coming in from the wider lines like really, really fast. For me, that makes it like even I've raced out at Bairnsdale, and these guys are going like 100 times faster than I do. It's actually like really sketchy because you've got guys going super fast and instantly hitting this spot where the track is narrowed up. So all of a sudden there's less room. The way that I feel the start straights need to be to make them safer and I guess more competitive, they need to narrow before the corner. So you've got riders already on the brakes as they come together and then funneling into the corner. That to me, I think, is what made Appin that little bit sketchy. So and
it's a fairly long start straight too.
Yeah, I was chatting with Liam Jackson today, and he was in total agreement. He goes, "Oh, that start was gnarly, like scary coming into." Anyway, it's been around for a long time. Like you said, it's an iconic track. It's a historic track. I'm just a guy with a podcast.
Yeah. I mean, the history's over the other side of the fence, though. But than the old track, but
yeah,
but yeah.
Do you understand what I'm sort of getting at? Yeah,
just funnel it down before they're starting to turn. Yeah,
yep. So the field's already starting to narrow out, as opposed to they're all reaching the end of the straight at the same time, and hitting that corner, and then they're not only navigating the corner, but they're narrowing up at the same time. Like it's a lot of shit going on.
Yeah. No, it does make sense, man. Yeah.
All right.
For sure. Yep.
MX3. So we kicked off the day with, the qualifying session was all a bit weird. They were split. I think we had 78 again, so massive numbers. And in the second qualifying group, the power went out and they lost the live timing. So they red flagged the qualifying and then started it up again, had to give them a little bit of extra time.
Yeah.
And I shoot a lot of these MX3 guys. I would say it actually impacted the results in that guys that don't normally qualify for MX3 and have like not qualified by a fair bit at other events ended up getting in.
Yeah.
And there's guys that finished well inside the top 20, say at Wonthaggi, that didn't end up qualifying at Appin.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know they had to deal with it in the moment, but I don't know. That was strange and not something. I don't know how you sort of. I don't know what caused.
So did the guys? Which ones got the advantage though? With what you're saying?
I think just based on who done their hot laps and how they approached their qualifying, I think just some guys got an advantage out of the interruption and some guys were disadvantaged.
Okay, so went a bit both ways then.
Yeah, 100% went both ways.
Yeah.
But for riders that usually qualify, it's luck of the draw, but they're going up against another group that hasn't had an interruption. They're running to a schedule that then we obviously had to shorten things up. Lunch got shortened because later in the day you've obviously got the TV broadcast which can't be moved around. It's a pretty sticky situation. It's not one that's easy to solve. I almost feel when you look at from a competitive sporting perspective that they should have started that qualifying session again, which you could argue what if someone did a faster lap in the first one, but it just what they did was they cut it, they red flagged it, and they added another 4 minutes. So if you were on your hot lap, and you lost that hot lap when the the power went out, then all of a sudden you've got 4 minutes to try get another hot lap in after a staggered start. You might be behind a slow rider. Like, I don't know. It just, it's, quote, only the MX3 class, but
the dick around to do the staggered start for qualifying laps wasted. See, I wasn't running a clock on it, but it seemed to waste a lot of time.
I don't think the clock started until, because I heard them talking about that, they were adding extra time to allow for the staggered start as well. I don't think that was, in the grand scheme of things, I don't think that really impacted it. It was simply just having half a qualifying session, big break in between, and then another half a qualifying session. You know, and all of a sudden, like I said, if you lost your hot lap because of that fault, like 4 minutes, it's 2 laps basically. You got to get that back in 2 laps. And as you know, like, they've only got 10 minutes. Shit can happen. You can get stuck behind someone can go down, you can have a mistake. Like, it's not a par for par playing field. And that for me, I don't know, it's a tough one. It's definitely a tough one.
Do you think the staggered start was the right way to go, though? Like,
I think the staggered start was smart in terms of at least you're trying to create some separation. But being young and impatient MX3 guys too, like, you watched them, they were did a staggered start like it was a race, you know?
Yeah.
Whereas realistically, like, if you were starting 5th, you let the guy in front of you take off and you give him 10 seconds. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like,
and then you got clear track to go.
100%. Yeah, but that's not the way they did it. And
they all just took off.
Yeah. It was like a staggered start for a race. It's like the guy in front of you takes off, and it's like, I got to catch that guy. It's like, but it's qualifying. It's. I
kind of reckon that would have been better off to just like bang him behind the gate, and just get him behind the gate, and just in front of the gate, so then they're not dicking around with the gate. Just get them all in front of the gate, and then just bang.
Green flag.
Let's go. Green flag, 10 minutes.
Yep.
And sort yourselves out for 10 minutes, because the setting up the stagger seemed to take quite a few minutes anyway, and then they got 4 minutes. So, for the sake of a few minutes more, just get them on the track, and because they start to sort themselves out anyway,
Yep. Yeah. I just think they should have just restarted this session for the sake of an extra 6 minutes, and then they could have started it straight away. It's like they wouldn't have had that, like you said, that dick around of the staggered start. So you've probably saved another 2 minutes there. So at the end of the day, you've lost 4 minutes. It is what it is now. It was an unfortunate situation. I don't, again, know the technicalities behind it, but maybe with better internet, it wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, well, the timing's pretty solid. Like, it's pretty solid.
Yeah.
Like, digital timing across all motorsports has been around for a very long time, and it's pretty bloody reliable. Like, it's pretty good,
And
so,
I know I don't want to put ourselves in the realm of like some of these high-end motorsports, like your Formula One or your touring cars or your your MotoGP, but you never see the timing drop out at a race to a point where they lose the live timing.
Yeah.
Do you?
No.
Anyway, moving on. Assuming they stay healthy, at present, the way I see it, there's only 2 riders in the running for the MX3 Championship. Like, looking at the points, looking at the way that they ride on track. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. What colour bikes are they on, Pete?
Red and blue. Red and blue. Yeah.
You wouldn't believe it that there's a red and a blue one, would you? Hey?
No.
You wouldn't and I agree. That is the narrative of the season, man, is a red and a blue rider in each class. It's cool, I guess. It's cool, and it's pretty crazy, and it's kind of got to be very annoying if you're on a different coloured bike, or selling, or running a team of a different coloured bike. But the red and the blue is definitely the thing. And Kai and Cade, man, that's where it's at. Kai seems to be maybe a little bit quicker, but
Well, I've had a chance to talk to Cade. I spoke to him at the end of Wonthaggi, so I did an interview with him after Wani, and I've spoken to him once since then as well. And he said he's still got room to improve with the bike and his fitness and everything. Like everything in terms of bike setup, it's still. I think he thinks he believes there's still quite a bit more to gain from that.
Yeah.
Whereas I think Kai he's riding well and it's all sort of gelling at the moment. So
it does seem to be really gelling for Kai. Like Kai, these guys they grow heaps each year, and because Kai was a tiny little bloke 2 years ago, he was tiny, so he's really shot up and they grow and they get better and all that. But he looks way better on the Yamaha.
Yep,
it seems to work for him. He looks way better on that than. Was he gas or KTM before? Bit of both over the years.
Gas last year. Yep.
Yeah. And he looked good on that at times.
Yes.
Extremely good at times. But
he could go 1-1 or 8-8.
That's the last few years. Yeah, that's right. Whereas he just looks like there's not going to be any 8 unless he lays it on the ground. Like it's to be really working in tandem with his blue machine. So.
I mean, someone at Yamaha obviously knows Kai and was able to see that. Like looking at his results from the last 2 years, I actually thought that was almost a little bit of a weird signing when I first heard it.
Yeah,
especially too because there was quite. From what I understand, it's quite a package. Like he got for an MX3 rider, he got a decent sign on, and he's got a decent overall package for wins and bonuses and championship and all that.
There's a bit of conjecture on that. So I've heard a little bit about that too, and it's not as the package isn't quite as good as what it might have been made out to be.
Yep, that's interesting. Yeah, yep.
I don't have details, but there was a hot rumor going around about him having a very, very good, been on a very, very good wicket, and it's not that good.
Well, I think because I heard some more figures a couple of days ago, I think where the interpretation or the communication went wrong was that the initial figure that I'd heard as a sign-on, I think, is the potential total package that includes his sign-on and if he was to win every race and win the championship.
Okay. Well, there you go. Yeah, yeah. Which is going to make a huge difference.
Yes, yeah. Of course.
Right. Yeah.
Which is still, at the end of the day, for an MX3 guy, I'm just, it's just what I've been told. I was told that it's around 120 grand. So, even if that is in the realm of reality, that's still a good package at the end of the season. If he was to, he's going to do all right. Put it that way.
Well, I didn't hear figures, but I did hear that. Yeah, that figure was laughed at by someone who would know.
Yep.
Put it that way. So it's not. Yeah. It's not anywhere near that.
Definitely not as a sign on, which was how it was getting reported to begin with. So I mean, sure. I think Kyle Webster might have something to say about that because I don't think he was getting that last year. Yeah,
there'd be a few doors getting knocked on of team managers and what is going on here.
For sure. Yeah. So in terms of this class, overall in the championship, Kai Woods is on 97 points, leading Cade Kingsford, who's on 91. The next rider is Jet Alsop, who's on 73 points. Long way behind. Yeah. We're only 2 rounds in. Unlike the Webster Beaton thing, these guys haven't dropped rounds. They're simply everyone behind these two guys. Like if you look at the Maxxis MX3 class, the provisional round points for Appin, like everyone else other than Kingsford and Woods has had one good moto, one terrible moto. Like everyone.
Yeah. Which is very MX3.
It is.
But, these two they're clearly
does not bode well for a championship potential for everyone else, though.
Yeah, that's right. There's MX3s. I love MX3 a lot, but there's a heap of these kids that could still win a round.
Oh yes,
they could just come out of nowhere and just went around. Like, we've seen that in this class. Some of the best races, or the best races we've seen in over the last sort of 5 years have come out of. There's been a round of MX3 that's just been like, what the hell just happened? You know?
Yeah, I don't know if I can see anyone winning a round. I could see someone maybe getting a top 2 in a moto.
Yeah, I could see someone winning a moto.
Yeah,
You know, and it might take some mistakes from Cade and Kai.
Yep.
But I could see Cooper Rowe winning a moto. Yeah, Allsop and Rowe. Yeah,
on the right track.
Yeah,
Yep.
on the right track on their day, that sort of thing. Yeah,
No,
I could
for
see
sure.
something like that happening. Yeah.
Anyway, it's definitely a very tumultuous class. Lots of shit can happen in this class.
Yeah, it's awesome, man.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Yeah.
We won't spend too much time on it, but MX85 class, again, some really good racing, lots of up and downs. Last year's 65cc winner, Blake Bohannon, took the overall with a 1-2 moto score. Like, he's only a young kid, just stepping up off 65s, you know, racing against some guys that have been on the 85 big wheels for a while. That is pretty damn impressive.
Yeah, it's crazy to be bang just out of 65s just straight in, and there you go. Like, it's wild. Yeah,
I mean the guy that wins everything and has won everything for the last year and a half running, Seth Thomas, arguably would have won the overall this weekend and won both races, but he had a pretty big crash in Moto 1, ended up winning Moto 2. But, as the saying goes, to finish first you must finish. So, I think quite a few riders took advantage of that and scored themselves some good points. So, I think in this class, and it's not a red and a blue bike.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
it's still a red bike up front. And Blake Bohannon, I guess, is on the Yamaha, so it is still a red and a blue bike, just not the same red and blue bike.
Kind of. Yeah, it's the different red.
Yep.
Yeah. Who is third in points?
On points now, Blake Bohannon leads the championship. After Seth Thomas's DNF, Blake's now 16 points up, that's a decent chunk of a lead. Seth Thomas, so Blake's on 91. Seth Thomas is second on points in 75. Deegan Fort, 65 points in third. Queenslander Xander Kruik on the KTM. He's on the KTM Junior Development Team. He sits fourth overall in the points. He came fifth at Appin. I know he wasn't happy with where he's at, and I think he believes that he can be like way further up and should be contending. So it's going to be interesting to see sort of how he progresses as the championship goes on. And we've got 3 rounds in Queensland as well, which is his stomping ground. So, I think, Nate Perrott, really, really accomplished rider as well. There's guys that this class could definitely be mixed up from where it is now. I don't think we've got, other than maybe Seth Thomas, because he won Supercross, he's won Motocross.
Yeah.
He's won the AMX Open. He's basically won everything there is to win in this class already. Behind him, I think it's open slather, really. Yeah,
well, it's a bit like, it's even more so like we were saying the same thing with the MX3. Like, you got a couple that are, maybe you got a 1 and 2, maybe you got, Bohannon's maybe your 2, but then you got like a bunch that could be, get a podium, or a moto, second, or even a moto win if something went, Bohannon and 1 and 2 tangle, and then, things like that, you can see things like that happening. And that's any number of these kids that are having a good day. They like that track, that sort of thing. Like, the high and low mark for 85 riders is usually pretty varied. Their best and their worst is pretty far apart.
Yeah, massively.
They haven't found consistency yet, for most of them anyway, yeah.
And that's what I was getting at. If I was a dad or a coach of one of these MX3 or 85 class riders, that's what I'd be preaching, is consistency. Like,
Yeah.
You know, if you have to, I know they're races and it's hard, but if you have to relinquish that one position or just not push to the nth degree to get that one position, go for consistency, because like when you're looking at these results, that's the difference between, you know, being at the top of the standings and not being there is the consistency.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
I think that's what'll be, that is what will pay at the end of the championship.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, that's what Seth's got to fight back from now, isn't it?
Yeah.
So,
All right.
yeah.
Before we wrap it up, we'll have a quick look ahead to Gilman. So, it's going to be cool. I think there's still a lot of storylines to play out for the rest of the championship. Last year, Webster went 1-1 at Gilman. They just had the South Australian state titles. Webster and Beaton both went over and exchanged wins. So 2 questions, I guess. Who do you think's going to end up on the top step of the podium out of those guys? And is there anyone that can challenge Webster or Beaton at Gilman?
Okay, no, I don't think that they'll get challenged at Gilman. I think there's maybe some other tracks coming up where someone may challenge them, but I don't think it's Gilman. And I think I would put my money on Kyle for a couple of reasons, just because I think he suits Gilman really well as a rider. And then also he just has to win, you know, like he has to win. So I think he's going to just have that added bit of desperation. But, and then they could bite him too, of course, when people are like that. But he's pretty clutch and he has to win. And
I think
I wouldn't be surprised in a 1-2-2-1, you know, sort of thing. Jed wins Moto 1, Kyle wins Moto 2. That's probably where I'd put my money. Because if Jed wins Moto 1 at any stage, he's going to know that he doesn't have to win Moto 2.
As I said, he only has to tie points and he's hamstringing Webster in a massive way.
He can go into each weekend thinking, if I win Moto 1, I'm walking out of here with the same points lead.
Yep. And
no matter what happens.
Like I said, if Webster goes 1-1, it's going to take him 3 rounds to get to that lead. But we've only got 6 rounds to go. If Beaton can, come out equal or ahead with each round that passes, that makes the job way harder for Webster. Like, it's not just a little bit harder. Webster has to be gaining points, even if it's just a couple of points, but he has to be gaining points at every round. If there is a round where he doesn't gain points on Beaton wins, basically.
Yeah. And the other thing on Gilman MX1, man, is I think that we need, even if it's a couple of parade hot laps, we need suited up Brett Metcalf, because he can't leave the sport like he did at the end of Supercross last year.
I believe
that can't be it. I don't think he was stretched off in the end, but he was carted off on the back of the first aid rig. Can't be how he leaves.
I spoke briefly with Medi at Appin. I think he's going to race Gilman.
That would be unreal.
I'm pretty sure that's the plan.
Yeah, because I remember saying when, I guess it was Melbourne was last round, wasn't it? Yeah, so it was Melbourne. And it was just, I remember saying to friends, that can't be how this guy leaves the sport.
Goes out.
There's no way he can leave the sport off the track on the damn first aid cart, the first aid mule, you know? So, that'll be awesome if he races Gilman. That'd be great. And I don't give a stuff how he goes, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't care if he's running around in 15th, just to do it and see him, and at Gilman and all that would be just perfect.
100%. Yeah. And I think now, obviously he's got his role looking after the team, but his son has raced those last 2 rounds as well. So there's no 85s at Gilman. He'll be able to put his focus on racing if that's what he ends up doing. So that would be very, very cool.
It will be, man. Yeah.
So before we move on to MX2 at Gilman, after we sort of saw what played out at Appin, who do you think is the next best guy in MX1?
Oh, geez, that's the hardest question, I think, man. That is the hardest question. I think it's out of 3 guys. The 2 orange ones and a green one. And yeah, I think any of those guys on their day, I'm trying to think who might suit Gilman the best, which is maybe Gibbsy. But yeah, it depends how he's feeling. But yeah, the NATO or Gibbsy or Cloudy is the other ones in the mix. Yeah, for that I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd like to say Regan Duffy because I'm a Regan Duffy fan. But yeah, but for him, honestly, I'm just happy for him to be healthy and just getting a little bit better all the time. So,
well, look, he's a West Australian. These guys, as much as it's a bit cliche, are notoriously good in the sand. He's going from strength to strength. I think he's getting better with every round. He was well inside the Super Pole qualifying at Appin. That's not his bread and butter. At Gilman, he could definitely be the one that throws in, a surprise there.
That'd be great, yeah. Because I'm watching pretty carefully because, like I said, I'm a fan, and he just had a tip over in Moto 2 that sort of made his day look not as good as it was. But that aside, he had a pretty good day.
So certainly, like a top 5 for him, I think is very doable, and that would be a fantastic result. Yeah.
No, I'm very, very keen to see him do well. I think that I've been vocal about it. His story's been just terribly, shockingly, in fact, a bit of rant from it. It's been shockingly undersold, his story, I think, as far as, what he went through to where he's come back to. Like, I heard a lot of stuff and I just shake my head to people like, this dude, like, he died on the track.
Yep.
Like
in the helicopter, at the hospital. Yeah. It
is if for him to come back, if he wins a race, if he wins one race, that would be one of the most impressive and biggest stories in the history of Australian sport.
Totally.
If he wins one race,
and that's the way it should be
and
documented.
I don't understand how his story and even his first comeback and all that was just so undersold. It pissed me right off. And I've talked to other Western Australians. I'm a Victorian, but I've talked to Western Australians about it. Western Australians agree with me. So yeah. And I was already a fan of his. I thought he was cool before all this, but now I'm a big fan of his. So,
yep.
Yeah.
Another one I think could be a surprise over at Gilman is Chandler Burns. I've seen that guy ride sand. It is by far like his superpower. Watching that guy get around Rosebud, which is beach sand, was just a sight to behold. So, for a guy that's been sort of in the top 10 to 15, I would not be surprised if he's like well inside the top 10 as well.
Yeah.
So, anyway, lots of sort of exciting storylines on the periphery, I think, in this class now. I tend to agree with you. I expect Webster will go 1-1. If Beaton was able to steal a moto or two out of him, I think that's a massive success for Beaton at that track.
Yeah.
So it's it's going to be interesting. I tend to think Cloudy will do well. He was going really well there last year, but I believe this was the round where he had a mechanical on the Cowie while doing really well. He was coming first or second, and in the first moto and pulled off and was understandably pretty pissed off. But I think Cloudy could be a bit of a dark horse when it comes to those top two as well. So I can't wait, man. I love Gilman. I love the track. I love Adelaide. It's just it's a cool vibe over there.
I reckon Adelaide's a cool joint, man. Like it gets a bit of a hiding from other Aussies about being lame and this sort of stuff. But I reckon it's cool, man. It is. It's a pretty city. The people are friendly. It's awesome to drive around.
Yep.
I reckon it's a good joint.
All right, MX2. Last year, Connolly went 1-1. I don't know how he actually went at the titles. I believe that he won, but don't quote me on that. I'd be surprised. I think I would have heard if he didn't win. I think that would have been more of the news. Or bigger
I'm not
news.
sure. I didn't look any further than just seeing what that Webster and Beaton were there, and they went. They swapped wins. I didn't even look any further or hear any further than that. So.
Ryder Kingsford didn't have a great round last year, and I guess the dark horse here potentially, I know he's been over this side of town for quite a while, but Adelaide is Alex Larwood's, home stomping ground. So, could he come out of the woodwork and steal a moto win? I think. Well,
you never know, man. Like Larwood, I think he's maybe one should think about more because I don't think he's nowhere near his best at the moment. It feels that way, or maybe others have gotten faster while he was injured.
Yep.
But I can remember him being the only guy who really had pace for Wilson Todd.
Yes.
And we're probably going back 4 years here. But I can remember him being like, he's the one that could take Wilbur on, but then just injuries and injuries and injuries. So you never know. And if he's the local boy, so who knows? Yeah.
But I think if you were a betting man, Connolly would be the guy.
I would put everything on Connolly. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Bet on red or blue. Bet on red. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of local boys, and actually, this might be MX1, depends. There's a chance Elijah Weesey might be lining up. So there you go. There's a little rumor for you. As of today, he wasn't sure yet. So but you never know. There's a local boy, privateer hero, who's a mate of ours. He may be lining up. You never know. If not, he'll be there spectating.
It's only a week away. I expect the PR campaign will commence soon. So might have to shoot Eli a message tomorrow and get him on for a chat if he is going to pull the trigger and make it happen. So MX3 last year, Cade Kingsford finished second to Jake Cannon. Jake Cannon's obviously not there. I believe Kyle Woods didn't even score points at Gilman last year, so I don't actually recall what happened there, but it seems like a bit of a disaster round.
You probably, on Kai's past, I don't think we can read into his past
too much
this season. He's a different guy.
Yeah.
He's like you said, he was like one of them guys who's like first or eighth for the past few seasons, I don't have any data in my brain about which one of these kids might suit Gilman. So I'll just have to go with MX3. I'd have to just go with the fact that they're the two that are looking like the best. Is there any of the top sort of 6 or 7 that are South Australian kids?
Let's have a look. So Cooper Rose, New South Wales. He would have been doing some training over there for the Go24 team though, for sure.
That's right. Yeah.
So I'm sure he's cut a few laps out there.
There is some connection there, yeah.
Yeah, I don't see really any South Australians until you start getting further down. Seth Shackleton. Now, he is an absolutely unbelievable rider, especially in sand. And I think his results so far aren't reflective of his ability. So Gilman might be his breakout round.
Yeah. For sure, yeah. He's definitely one to watch there, yeah.
And I don't think he's stoked on his results so far, so he could do really well. Caden Strode, this was his best round last year. Loves the sand as well. Loves Gilman. He's got some a fair bit of speed. He's coming off he was actually crooked at Appin, so raced the first moto and then called it a day. Just was not feeling very well, but again, maybe a podium dark horse for Gilman as well.
Yeah.
Behind Cade and Kai at this like we sort of said earlier, I think this is anyone's for the taking at this stage. So, yeah, I think you could pretty much lock the next 10 guys in a container and let them fight to the death, and you just you wouldn't know who's going to come out alive. So that's
it. Yeah, and we got MX. We got the girls. Yeah, MXW.
Yep. So the girls are back at Gilman, which is very, very cool. So they didn't race at Gilman last year. They did Murray Bridge. Well, Charlie Cannon won everything.
And it's not no shade on the other girls, but it's always she's just that good. Like if it's not a 1-1, then you're surprised. It's almost a lock.
Taylor Thompson, super good in these sorts of conditions.
The racing from between second and sixth is amazing.
Yes,
in the girls,
Yeah.
Both the Taylors get really good starts, but usually not long, and Charlie's got them.
In terms of Charlie, based on previous years, I feel like this year she has elevated again. I felt like, maybe I'm wrong and she just wasn't riding as hard as she possibly can in previous years.
Yeah.
But I felt like, on her day, Thompson, McCutcheon, they were there. Even Danielle McDonald at times. Like they were there. I don't know. After what we've seen this year of her, I think she's untouchable.
I think at Wonthaggi, we really saw her uncork
her potential.
The full Charlie.
Yep.
Because with the US girls there, she was just like, righto, and she just unleashed.
Yep.
Honestly, maybe she's, not full psycho Charlie when she's just racing the Australian competition, not to throw any shade at them, but it's understandable, So
yep.
I just honestly wish that she would get a really good international opportunity.
At this point, after what we saw at Wonthaggi, she's world class. Whether she ends up in MXGP or in the US, I think there's plans potentially for her to go to. I heard rumours to the US.
Oh, for US, I've heard that. Yeah, because I know that there's just not money in racing WMX in Europe.
Yep.
There's just not money in it. It's just not financially. It's just not a good. It's a bad deal, unless you're probably a European girl living in Europe already, and then it's all cheaper for you. But to go as an Australian or an American or whatever and race WMX in, or a Kiwi, obviously Courtney Duncan. If you win that much, if you win as much as her, you're going to make some money. But generally most of them, no chance.
Yeah.
But I think the US series, the way it's ramping up, the WMX over there, it's ramping up a little, and there's some good people behind really pushing that. That could be a good avenue for her to make some good money and progress her career, because it's got to get a little unfulfilling eventually, just winning all the time in Australia.
I would take that a step further and be a little bit bolder, and I would say that her talent at the moment is wasted in Australia.
It is, it is.
And that's not a discredit to anyone else. I just think, it would be the
other girls are. Yeah. The other girls are awesome. It's just Charlie is a friggin' alien. She's like a Jet Lawrence, of the WMX at the moment. She's just better.
Yeah, and I think the Taylors, for instance, Danielle McDonald's doing off roads at the moment, but they've got that sort of skill level where they could be competitive on the world scene. But I think Charlie's got the potential to be a champion wherever she goes. Yeah, she's that good.
Yeah, I mean, when she did a couple of MXGPs, all weird over there, different bike team, food, everything like that. She, I remember her getting a fourth.
Yep.
and that's like with barely any experience or grounding or testing or anything, and she was getting top fives, So, but that's the thing. It's just really the only way she could do Europe is for Mr. and Mrs. Cannon to spend a lot of money.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I've got one question for you before we wrap this up, and I've covered this briefly in the podcast we did after Wonthaggi, but like now that we're heading into Gilman, into round 2, I guess I've had a chance to think about it a little bit more, and it's something that really, actually now, from an Australian MXW Championship point of view, irks me, is that to the international races that were here for the Oceania Cup, which means that heading into round 2, Charlie Cannon sits on 50 points. The next rider, Australian rider, going into is Taylor Thompson, who sits on 33 points, and Taylor McCutcheon, who sits on 32 points. So they're 17 points back when ostensibly, they should be 6 points back and 8 points back. From an Australian Championship point of view, if
they stuffed it up.
Yep, in future,
stuffed it up.
Yep, they should have awarded points for the Oceania Cup, and then once and if any of these internationals wanted to hang around, obviously,
if one of the US girls was hanging around, well, fair play. But if they're not going to, it's sort of they should have made some sort of separation within the structure of
rejig the points.
Event.
Yep, for the Australian Championship. Yep.
Yeah, they needed to have done something I mean, yes, okay, we know Charlie's probably just going to win all the rest of the races anyway, but still, what if she doesn't? What if
exactly.
She has What if she has a mechanical? What if she has a small injury? And one of the Taylors or Maddie or someone is bang in with a chance, and it's taken away because of how the Oceania points were. I agree. Yeah,
maybe it will happen. I doubt it. I haven't heard anything about it, but looking at the points, it doesn't sit well with me. I think from building a storyline and a fan perspective, you've just taken the heat out of the fire. And for the riders themselves, it's a massive discredit to they're competing for an Australian Championship, and you've got 15 internationals who've scored points towards the championship for an event that isn't even related to the Australian Championship, just because they chose to use them on the same gate drop, put them on the same gate drop. So, is what it is. We'll see how it plays out, but I just wanted to get your opinion on that one.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree that that was needs a bit of rejigging for next year, because hopefully it happens again next year. It was a really cool event. Yeah,
and we get a few more countries and a few more riders and everything over. So I mean,
there was talk that France were interested.
Yep,
a French team was interested.
So by that stage, they might even get their own gate drops. It's you just don't know how that's sort of going to happen. If they get any more teams interested, they're not going to be able to fit them on the same gate. So
that's right. Yeah.
Which again, not to digress too much, will create its own issues, because then all of a sudden you've got 5 Aussie girls. If they did it on the Saturday, say, and they left the other MXW classes, they've had a chance to ride the track. It's going to be interesting to see how they manage it, but fortunately for you and me, we're not in that decision-making process with that responsibility.
Or would be for my case. I can't. I'm not. I'm anything like that where there's a lot of officiating and things to do is definitely not my bag, Pete. I'm happy to just talk about it instead.
That's it. That's it. All right. Before we wrap up, was there any other talking points that you wanted to raise or cover?
No, I think we've covered everything. Covered everything real well, Pete. I think everything that I was thinking of. We covered the sprinkler jokes and the auction and the bad internet and all all the results and everything. So yeah, I think hats off to Appin. I thought, we spoke, for both of us, it was our first time to Appin.
Yep.
And I thought it was, apart from the internet, it was a great joint. It was looked really pretty. The elevation, the green grass, the views for the track was really good, especially up the hill.
Picturesque, wasn't it?
Up the hill, the track, you could see the track really well. It looked awesome. If you're stuck down around the start, around turn one, around the start and all that sort of thing, like some of the fenders and that, the viewing's sort of crappy there. But if you're willing to walk around a bit, the viewing was really good. And, I just thought the whole joint was, I thought it was cool, man. Like I was surprised from watching it on TV. It looked better than I expected. So, just the presentation of the place, I think, was, really, really good. So
I thought last year's championship was good. I think they've stepped it up a notch again this year, and so far, the first two rounds we've had, as much as we had our little rants and our little gripes, I think in the grand scheme of things, they haven't missed a beat. So
yeah, I think every review you got to complain about something, don't you, Pete? You can't if you're too happy about any event, then people think you're
a shill.
People think you're a shill. That's right. You got to find something to complain about.
That's right.
Yeah. So that's it.
You're on the payroll otherwise. So
you got to find something you got to lay the boots in somewhere.
Yep. Call it as you see it. I agree. All right. Well, that brings us to this episode of Between the Rounds. If you like the episode, don't forget to give us a positive review on your preferred podcast platform, and make sure you subscribe to Mental4Moto and turn on your notifications so you don't miss out on the next one. Massive thanks to you, Steve, for joining me to co-host. If you're listening, make sure you check out his podcast, The Outside Gate, available on all good podcast platforms. He's had some absolutely amazing guests on there from the US, and I think you're starting to dabble in some Australian guests as well. Is that right?
Yeah, man. Yeah. So just briefly, I was helping out the Moto Limited boys at the time when I started my podcast, and I didn't want to sort of step on their toes, and I was helping them with Australian content. So my show sort of cranked up, particularly as looking at the US scene. And then shortly after that, Moto Limited stopped. So I was sort of already on a path to covering the US scene. But I'm really making an effort now to cover the Aussies, probably more so than the American scene, in fact. So
what you're saying is we're rivals. Is that right? We're rivals.
Bit, yeah.
Okay. So don't listen to The Outside Gate.
Except if you want someone that's really professional, then you listen to Pete.
I doubt that very much, mate. Yeah.
Pete's a lot more professional than me, but it's good. I love going to the races. I love going into the races. I love talking to people face to face and that sort of thing. So that's I'm really looking forward to getting around the Aussies a bit more. I've been to quite a few Aussie races in the past, but making a big effort this year to go to all of them. So is the plan, as long as the Kangaroos leave me alone in the future. So.
Yes, yep. And look, one thing with you, Steve, that definitely impresses me is your memory for history when it comes to motocross. You're like one of those guys that, especially when you start going back, back. You remember motos and events and riders. That stuff's impressive.
Don't put me on the spot right now, in case I'm wrong, but I could probably nearly reel off Mr. Motocrosses by year for every year of it. So things like that. Things like I'm pretty good at a lot of my history of Aussie and US stuff is pretty good. Like I was saying before, I genuinely am just chuffed to see Gawley and Dakar and Bally still cruising around the pits. That it's amazing, and the kids should know more about those blokes.
But on that note, how low key are they? Dakar, obviously he's the figurehead of the team, but Gawley and Glenn Bell,
Yeah.
Works under the
I was
Penrite
chatting
tent. You wouldn't know if you didn't know.
Yeah.
You wouldn't know.
You wouldn't know. I'm pretty sure Bally's got the most Aussie Supercross wins of all time.
Yeah, and
most kids just see he's that Penrite guy.
Yep.
You know,
yeah.
like,
So it's funny because last year at MX Farm, I was standing at the fence in the morning. We just had the media briefing, and I was standing at the fence looking at the track, and Belly came up and starts talking to me, and he introduced himself. He just said, "I'm Glenn," and I'm looking at him, and I'm like, "Man, this dude looks like Glenn Bell." Yeah, we're chatting away, and this is like circulating in my mind over and over, and I'm like, no way, there's no way Glenn Bell just works at, for Penrite, wearing a Penrite jacket, getting around the races now. I'm like, no, I'm just I'm tripping. So I went into the media tent and I said to Mark Jones, Glenn Bell work for Penrite? And he's like, yeah. And I'm just like, man, I need to hand in my motocross fan license. I think I just spent the last 20 minutes talking to Glenn Bell and wasn't even sure. So, I obviously used to watch him, but haven't seen him in a long, long time.
Pretty sure the first Supercross I ever went to, Bally won it. I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
That would have been at the tennis centre, and it would have been early 90s. I'm pretty sure Bally won it. Yeah. That's back in the expression session days. That's what I was as a kid at Supercross, the expression session.
Yeah, bring that back and bring back Mr. Motocross.
But the thing, bring back Mr. Motocross. Yeah, expression sessions wouldn't work though, man, because every kid on an 85 is doing bigger whips than those guys were doing.
True.
Back then.
True. Yeah.
They'd win the expression session doing a mad whip off the finish tabletop, and now every one of them 85 kids out there at Appin could do a better one.
Yeah, you got 85 kids pulling knack-knacks. Yeah.
Yeah, freestyle. Where freestyle's gotten to a spot where you got to jump out of an aeroplane or off a cliff with a parachute on your bike to impress us.
Yeah, I don't know where it's going next. Yep.
And so they've run out of stuff. They've run out of stuff. I don't know, but some of these guys, they keep, McNeil and Axel and that, they keep coming up with stuff, but geez, eventually they've got to run out of ideas eventually, don't they? It's incredible, man. Yeah,
it is very incredible what they do on dirt bikes. We've got to wrap this up. We've been going for nearly 3 hours. It's just been you and me, mate. So, this episode of ProMX Between the Rounds is brought to you by the April sponsor of our National Motocross and Supercross Wall Calendars, Descript Products. If you've made it this far, thanks for listening. On behalf of Mental4Moto, I've been your host, Pete Wolf. Until next time, see ya.